Right. So, we've forecasted Tesla's financials until EBIT. We also have working capital estimates, as well as CapEx, obtained from the roll forward of fixed assets. We are ready to go ahead and start calculating the company's expected, unlevered, free cash flow, which will then help us determine Tesla's financing needs in the future. Therefore, the next task on our to-do list is calculating unlevered free cash flow. In the sheet you see here, we have the typical structure that allows you to do that. We start off with EBIT. Then we subtract the company's operating taxes with respect to EBIT. Bear in mind that this gives us taxes that are slightly different than the ones paid with respect to net income. This gives us NOPAT, net operating profit after taxes. Given that we started from EBIT, this means that we have considered D&A. We add back D&A because it is a non-monetary expense and will be accounted for in a different way. After we add back D&A, we arrive at gross cash flow. To obtain unlevered free cash flow, we'll need to consider the necessary investments in working capital we have already calculated, CapEx, which we have also calculated, and we need to forecast other assets and other liabilities. Very well. Let's link the inputs we already have to their sources. I will be able to find EBIT in the P&L output sheet, so that's where I will go and look for it. Then I will multiply this figure by the statutory tax rate in the driver's sheet to obtain operating taxes. However, I'll also have to add a condition, an if function. The company is not going to pay taxes if its EBIT is negative. I can easily model that with if. Taxes will be paid only when Tesla has a positive EBIT. This is how we arrive to NOPAT. I can easily add back D&A, linking to the fixed asset roll forward schedule. The most important detail is to put a minus sign in front, given that D&A is negative in the P&L sheet, but here we would like to add it back. After we add back D&A to NOPAT, we obtain gross cash flow. Perfect. My next task would be to calculate working capital investments, the cash impact of trade receivables, inventory, and trade payable. In general, we know that when assets increase, this represents a cash outflow. We invested to acquire the asset. At the same time, if an asset decreases, then this is a cash inflow, as if we sold the asset and received money for it. Liabilities behave in the opposite way. If a liability increases, it is as if we have borrowed the money, and hence this means a cash inflow. When a liability decreases, on the other hand, we can think of it as repaid debt. Therefore, it represents a negative cash flow. Okay, great. Having said that, we are ready to calculate the cash impact of all three working capital items. First off, we have trade receivables. This is an asset, and its increase would mean a negative cash flow. This is why I'll add a minus sign in front of the brackets, and we'll subtract this period's trade receivables minus the trade receivables from the previous period. Trade receivables increase, and this is why we have a cash outflow, negative cash. Inventory is an asset too, and it is right under trade receivables in the balance sheet. This allows me to simply copy and paste the formula downwards. At the same time, account payables is a liability. This means that it abides by different rules. An increase of account payables is a positive cash flow. This is why I am not going to insert a minus sign in front of its formula, and will simply take the difference between account payables in this period and account payables registered in the previous period. Very well. The sum of all three items gives us investments in working capital. Earlier, we completed the entire fixed asset roll forward schedule, remember? This is when we obtained CapEx. I'll simply add it here, and we'll put a minus sign in front of it, given that capital expenditures are money that we spend. Other assets and liabilities? We have still not forecasted any of these. We will have to do that in our next 2 lessons. And once we have done that, we will be ready to obtain unlevered free cash flow.